So as we talked about at the beginning, we're going to have two different packaging locations. So let's give ourselves some space here so we can work. And I'm going to use a very similar format to what I used above. We're going to change the colors and change some things to so we can separate out exactly what we're doing. But once you have some of this stuff developed, it becomes very easy to copy and paste and then just manipulate it to save yourself some time. Okay, so this is going to be, we'll do our packaging location in the US that satisfies, or that supplies the US market. And again, we're going to change the color here. That looks decent. Okay, so that gets us started. So a lot of this stuff is going to be the same, but I'll start with a clean slate here, since we're working with a different level of the supply chain. And we'll build this one from scratch, but again, I'll try to go relatively quickly. Okay, so for modeling the packaging step, if you recall, we talked about there being 2 months of total lead time at this step. So we're going to have to factor in kind of a 2-month offset from the start of the operations to the shipment of the finished goods out to the distribution center. So what we're going to have here is going to be, we're going to have to add in some rows, and you'll see how this is used. So the first step is going to be packaging start. The next one is going to be packaging completion and release. And then this is going to be, whoops, sorry. Let me just copy this formatting for us. Okay, so at the packaging step, the way this is going to work, you're going to start a packaging operation in 1 month. Then the following month, that operation is going to complete and release and be ready to ship, and then it'll actually ship out the following month, at which time it will then appear in the receipts the appropriate receipts column above. So that's how we're going to model a 2-month lead time. So to see how this works, we've got our US SKUs were the 10 and the 50 count up here at the top. So those are the SKUs that we're going to package. So let's adjust this one here to the 50 count. And if our formulas are good, that should all update automatically, which it does. Okay, so that's nice. So then the way you link this up to the distribution center is quite simple. So whatever ships out of my packaging site in 1 monthly bucket is what also needs to arrive at the distribution center in that same monthly bucket. So if you remember at the beginning, we talked about, for this high-level modeling, we would assume transportation lead times were relatively insignificant, and the lead time associated with that was captured in other operations. So then, that being the case, to link this up, it's nothing more than saying whatever ships out of the packaging site in this cell has to be equal to whatever arrives at the distribution center in that same monthly bucket. So then we're going to go up here to the US location. And just say that equals that. Copy that. now we simply know at our packaging site exactly what we need to ship out the door in each monthly bucket in order to replenish the US distribution center so that it can satisfy demand and maintain target inventory levels. All right, so now we just need to start offsetting our lead time for the various operations. So if I need to ship something in February 2013 in this case, I know based on what we talked about at the beginning that the packaging operation needs to complete and the product needs to release the month prior. So that's how we factor in a 1 month offset, by simply saying whatever completes in this month needs to be equal to whatever ships in the following month. So we'll drag those across. All right, so we've got that. And I'll tell you how to deal with these initial buckets when we get to them in a minute. So obviously, whatever's shipping in January must have already completed in December, and this is our initial bucket, so we're not going to have anything here. We're only going to have a starting inventory level. So I'll show you that in a minute. All right, well, let's follow the same logic here to what starts. So if this quantity needs to be completed in February, then that means that amount better have started packaging the month prior based on the lead times that we discussed. So we just factor in that offset simply by doing this, saying whatever needs to complete packaging in February had to have started packaging in January. And we'll copy that for the other finished good, and we'll drag that across. All right, so now we've got our lead times factored in for the different operations. So when it comes to starting inventory levels, there's a couple of ways you can handle this. What you should do is look up what exactly is your starting inventory level for your work in process at your packaging site, and that would include whatever bulk tablets are waiting to be packaged, whatever packaging is currently in process, and then whatever's in finished goods but just hasn't shipped out the door yet. So that's how you would really do this. For our modeling purposes, what we're going to say is the starting inventory level needs to be equal to whatever had to have been in process at the start of this operation in order to make all this balance. So if 1,495 units is shipping out in January, well, we know we must already have that either released and ready to go or in process. And then if we've got another 1,347 units that are completing in January, well, then we know that piece had to have started in December. So these values had to have already been in inventory. So you can, to make this all balanced, you can simply say my starting inventory has to be equal to this plus this. And then the same goes for the other. And you'll see this is 0 because if you recall, we had a relatively high inventory level on the second finished good, so we didn't need to ship anything out for a couple of months. So there's no need for anything to be kind of currently in process. So we'll drag that across. And that should all work out, and we'll do a test calculation just to make sure everything kind of balances. So we can do that down here in our test field. So let's say, just to check to make sure this works. Well, I don't have my aggregation fields in yet, so we'll put that in. So let's add in the total number of tablets. So if you recall, that was nothing more than the finished goods times the total number of tablets. Oops, sorry. And we'll copy and paste that aggregation calculation for the other rows. All right, so we'll test this out and see if it works. So if this balances the starting inventory plus whatever essentially started the operation minus whatever we shipped out the door minus the ending inventory level needs to be 0, and it does. So it all works nicely. So we've got that modeled properly. And everything balances. So we're in good shape on this. Let's add in just that API aggregation row, kind of just for completeness. So that was nothing more than the total number of tablets times the grams per tablet divided by all of our success rates and yield factors, so that we know how much API had to have gone in to make that quantity of tablets. And then we could just drag that across. Oops. And again, I forgot to lock this cell down. Sorry about that. And I'll just copy that down. The cells will update appropriately. All right, so we've got our packaging operation modeled. So the next thing we want to do is the inventory value of what we've got at this particular location. So let's create. So this is going to be the US 5 milligram 10 count standard cost. We'll say at packaging site. And it's in US dollars. And we'll say there's a little bit of added value when it moves into the distribution center. Sometimes the standard cost at the packaging site is identical to what is at the distribution center, and sometimes there's a slight difference. So we'll just say there's a slight difference here, and we'll set it like this. And then we'll just multiply these out. So this times that. And then we'll just add them up. So we get our inventory value at this particular step of the supply chain. And again, this row is probably a duplicate row. Probably could drop it. Well, certainly could drop it, but I come this far, I'll just leave it in. And again, if I wasn't creating this kind of on the fly as we talk through it, I probably would have eliminated this row. All right, so that gives us inventory value at this step.